Hey everybody, it's John Ernest. Many of you may know me as Internet Janitor, and I'm joined here by John Turp
Hey, that's me.
and Everdread.
Hey, it's the Big Bambino, Evertrade. Wow.
And today we're gathering together to play all the games from OctoJam the Third. So let's get started. So the OctoJam is a month-long game jam where everybody gets together to try to make games that run on a virtual game console from 1977 called Chip 8. It has very limited specifications, and all of the contestants have to try to figure out how to cram their creative ideas down into fitting on this platform.
Was there any really famous uses of Chip 8? Was there any sort of impressive sort of tech for the day that used it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
This is it.
Chip 8 was designed as a way to easily write games on a retro computer called the Cosmac VIP, which was intended as like a low-cost educational computer. And so it was successful, moderately successful for the time. They didn't produce a very large volume of them, but it created a really strong following. And Chip 8 sort of managed to transcend that platform, and it was, re-implemented and ported to all kinds of 8-bit computers, HP graphic calculators, and eventually modern PCs. If you go on GitHub today, you can find hundreds and hundreds of implementations of this.
Well, our first game is Chip Aquarium. Bam, there it is.
So this is Chip Aquarium. This is written by Matt Mickelay, who runs a website where he has Mastering Chip 8, which is a really fantastic reference to the Chip 8 instruction set.
It's a fish.
So yeah, this is basically like a Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi or Tamagotchi?
It's Tamagotchi, please.
Tamagotchi.
Let's get the Japanese correct.
So you have a fish, and you can play rock, paper, scissors with it. You can clean up after it. It's generally a simulation game where you just try to keep your fish alive.
So it's kind of like Seaman.
This is the Seaman of the Chip 8 platform. This is a game that was written using the authentic limitations of the original Chip 8 platform. So this is running at a realistic speed and not using any of the extended instructions that were added in later versions of the system. Yeah, there's not a lot to it, but it works.
It's eating.
Yeah, I think
you
it's
say
cute.
who made this?
Yeah, this is by Matt Mickelay. He runs a website where he's got a whole bunch of historical documents about the Cosmac VIP and software that was written for it. A lot of the resources that he prepared were very useful in the original creation of Octo. So it's great to see him participating in this.
So he's an old school dude.
I don't think so, not particularly.
Okay.
But he is an enthusiast in retro computing.
Oh, okay.
So can the fish die?
I think you got... It takes a little while for it to die. I think that we've basically seen most of the features of this thing. So
Can the fish get any bigger?
I don't think that it can grow, no. I could be wrong.
Well then, I guess we'll move on to our next game called Snake.
So this is Snake by Tyson Decker. This is a little bit unfinished. If you read the source code, he talks about how he started working on this and he had some difficulty getting it to run fast enough. So this is running with just standard Chip 8 instructions, but the emulator is running significantly faster than the real hardware would be, about 100 times as fast.
I don't see anything to eat.
Those features weren't implemented yet. If you can force the snake to grow longer, and you'll notice that as you do that, it gets slower and slower.
The poor snake.
So
I think
part of the reason that this game runs so slowly is because it's sort of applying the approach that you would take in implementing Snake on a modern computer to Chip 8, which doesn't work so well. The crucial thing here is that this game tries to redraw the entire display every time it updates, which is actually very expensive. It needs to consider all of the links that form the snake and walk over an internal data structure that's tracking those in and draw every single segment.
What have you done to your snake?
All of the indirection that is necessary there is somewhat expensive. So in Chip 8, usually what you try to do is redraw as little of the screen as possible in order to get the best performance. So like if you're making a snake game, really you only need to update the pixels at the head of the snake and the tail of the snake. And if you're really careful, you can design a data structure such that it's easy to keep track of those 2 points, and you don't have to do a lot of traversal. So I definitely want to say thanks for giving this a shot, Tyson. And if you look over the code, it's pretty well organized. But I hope that you'll take a little bit of time to try to follow this advice and see if you can modify this game to not redraw the entire display every time. You might find that solves the performance problems you're having.
Well, all right. I guess our next game then is Binding of Cosmac Octobirth.
Okay, so this is The Binding of Cosmac Octobirth by our own Buffy. He's participated in the OctoJam a number of times before. So this is a super chip game. You may have noticed that this has a somewhat higher resolution display than the other games we've been looking at so far. Super chip is a extension to the normal Chip 8 that was native to the HP48 graphing calculator. It added some additional scrolling instructions and other stuff like that. So this takes advantage of Super Chip. This is also running at a higher speed than is, strictly speaking, realistic for the platform. But Buffy just wanted to focus on the gameplay rather than the implementation. And it's pretty responsive. How do you feel about the gameplay,
It
John?
runs really smoothly.
Yeah. It's kind of hard.
It is actually particularly difficult.
The level layout is static. This is, if anybody watching isn't familiar with The Binding of Isaac, that's a roguelike game that this is inspired by, and this is kind of like a bare bones trimmed down version of that. So the level layout in this game is static. It does remember like destroying enemies and then revisiting a room, which is a nice touch. And I think that the README says that there's a total of 42 rooms, and it's divided into 3 floors, and there is a final boss.
Yeah, this definitely took me a few attempts to try to get through it with multiple floors.
Yeah, I mean, because it's an instant game over for the whole game. It's kind of punishing, but I enjoyed playing through it. I think I got more than halfway through it on my best run, and then I decided to enable the God mode that is helpfully provided in the README.
Down the hole.
Yep.
That's cute.
Beat the first floor. You can keep your honor at this point.
That's not something I'm very familiar with.
So the chests in this game just give you hats. The hats are actually a detriment because they make your hitbox effectively larger. But on the other hand, if you're not going to win with style, what's the point?
Yeah, hats are their own reward.
Exactly.
And the most important reward as well.
Arguably.
Missing a key, it seems.
Yep, you need a key.
Yeah, so it's all about finding the keys, applying the keys, and you're dead. It does at least restart you on the floor that you started on. So in the past, Buffy has also made Truck Simulator, which is a game where you're a man running on the freeway pretending to be a truck. That was also that was an exo chip game using some of the Octo specific extensions to add a little bit of color.
Man.
And last year he made a frenetic space shooter.
I try going right here.
What happened there?
I did notice that when I was walking around through these rooms,
I go right.
sometimes it seemed like a door would appear somewhere where it wasn't previously when I like went back through a room. It kind of makes me wonder if maybe like one or two of the rooms is wired up wrong in the adjacency matrix, or if it does that on purpose, maybe. Oh man, you did it.
Oh, you did it.
Final floor. It is a
Yeah,
nice little
hat,
face.
though. You got to find a hat.
Oh, this is the final floor already. Jeez.
Oh, you only have shoot that sucker. Shoot it.
It's really hard to predict where he's going. That.
Yep.
Fuck. The tension is palpable. I mean, will John be able to do it? Will he succeed? You got to shoot it, damn it.
It's kind of hard when you do not know where it's going.
Yeah, you really got to play the edges against this boss.
We didn't get a lot of pure super chip submissions this year. It was kind of interesting. Last year, there were a lot of super chip games. People just enjoy having the higher resolution. It does make it a lot easier to make stuff look like things, having those extra pixels. The super chip display is 128 pixels by 64 pixels. And the standard chip 8 is only 64 by 32.
Oh,
So
wow. So that is
a quarter as many pixels to work with. And it also allows you to draw larger sprites all at once, which can be a little bit important for performance. I don't know if the boss will actually walk all the way to the edges of the screen. I wonder if you can. The strategy seems to be working.
Yeah, I think I hugged the left side when I beat it.
Got him.
Oh.
That's nice.
And it exploded. And you're happy.
A smile.
That's awesome.
I think that's the most rewarding game over that we've seen so far. The reason that it doesn't go back to the title screen is that this game actually overwrites the title screen drawing code like immediately after the game starts to store some of its temporary buffers.
That's awesome.
That can be a pretty good strategy for saving a little bit of RAM. This had 32 bytes of RAM free.
Yeah, that was really cool. That felt really good for an Octo game.
I agree.
Our next one is called Night.
So this is Night by Simon Clitt Johnson. This is a super chip game, as you can probably tell. The main gameplay is at a lower resolution than the title screen. This game is really hard, and I really don't. I was not able to achieve anything even resembling succeed in this game. It is really hard. Masty was suggesting that if you back up for a while, yeah. So this game crashes after you lose and restart a couple of times. So maybe I should talk about that. So this game accumulates stack garbage, like the leftover return addresses of subroutine calls every time you die and restart. And so Octo has a limited depth stack. The chip 8 stack is 12 activation records. So after you die a couple of times, it'll run out of space to make subroutine calls and drop you into the debugger and show you. This is a problem that's fairly common. Usually it's because you're somewhere inside of a subroutine that's called from inside your main loop. And then inside that subroutine, you decide, oh, whoops, the game is over. I need to restart. But you don't drop back out to
You almost got him.
the main loop.
You can be
You
king
have
now.
to be. Oh, hey, you won.
won.
Figured it out.
You are better at this game than I ever was, John. Congratulations.
Wow. See,
Best
I'm patting myself on the
round.
back. Can you hear that? Yep. It's
Yep.
so great. Okay. So
Yeah. And Masty was
This
saying that
is-
if you back up for a while, because of the way it compares unsigned numbers, you can get it into a situation where he isn't very good at chasing you. You have to wrap around a couple of times, and then you can take advantage of the screen boundaries to sort of kite him. I think that is the closest thing to a pro strat that exists in this game.
It looks pretty effective.
I encourage anybody interested in this game to read the README because it has a cute little background story. I enjoyed that.
all right. I'm the king twice in a row now.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much seen it.
Hang on. Oh,
Do you think that guy is really muscly? Is that why his
He's
midsection
been-
is so thick?
He's been transformed into a bat-like creature.
Oh,
This
Well,
is
alright.
there's a lot of lore.
that's a pretty
Thi-
frustrating game to play.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was.
Yep. Okay, we're moving on. We're gonna tackle the. Would you call this the biggest Octo game ever made?
Yeah, it is. Well, so it's the biggest Chip 8 Octo game ever made. Maybe that deserves a little bit of explanation.
And it's
So-
Ace Attorney or eight Attorney.
Yeah.
It's like a
This
Final
is-
Fantasy
Yeah.
game where it comes on 3 discs, right? It's an
Right.
epic.
Yeah, this was made by System Logoff, who has been a participant in every one of the OctoJams so far. And he's a stickler for accuracy. So he is running at a stock 7 cycles per frame emulation speed, stock Chip 8 resolution and instruction set. And so Chip 8 gives you a little bit less than 3.5 kilobytes of space to work with. And for this game, he was making a story-driven game that had a bunch of text. So he decided to split the game into 3 parts. So the first one is 2,480 bytes. The second one is 2,591 bytes. The third one is 2,285 bytes for a total of 7,356 bytes. And now,
extravagant.
in ExoChip, there are some extensions to the amount of RAM that you have available. So there are bigger games made for that. But this is the biggest game that has ever been intended for running on the Chip 8 platform. Stock. So do I have a chance, Bell? Everybody should be Bell.
The case's build is weak. Well, we'll win.
Thank you. 10 a.m. 10:15 a.m. Courthouse. Johnny,
My
after you-
child's birthday.
My child's birthday is tonight, so let's make this fast. Prosecutor's defense? Prosecutor, comma, defense?
Ready.
Nice. Okay, detective? Was this Flowey?
Jimmy.
The victim, a court bailiff named Gil, was found dead. The time of death was
This is brutal.
1 a.m. I almost said I am.
I really hope you were
He
going to say I
died
am.
of that. Head
He
wound
died of-
before a fall downstairs.
It's just, it's
Oh.
really good dramatic pausing. It's
It is.
really?
That's awesome. Power off and load.
So will this run on the Cosmac?
In principle, it should. I haven't rigorously tested it for compatibility, but it ought to. We're going to find out. We have an associate who has a Cosmac VIP who's going to try this.
Hit Q for more info.
Hit W to go forward. Hit E to show item. Cross-exam. He did it. The janitor did it. When you think about it, like from a writing perspective, it's very challenging to try to you need to use names and phrase things such that they fit in this tiny little space.
Oh, this is...
It is involved. That does not.
I wanted
make
to
sense.
get more info on it.
Sorry.
The janitor did it.
Okay, so we have to be like, okay, well, the... What? So is it like, it's like Ace Attorney where it is actually per dialogue where you have to kind of...
Yeah. It's essentially a puzzle game. No one else left except my client.
I can't get over that it's flowy.
I didn't put that connection together, but that does look a lot like Flowey, and that's canon now. So maybe Everdred should be doing the judge in that case.
Is that still? Oh yeah, I guess that is. That's his wig.
Yeah.
The janitor did it. Camera saw them enter. There's no one else.
Wait, I know I meant to press the other
Who
one.
else could be in the courthouse late at night?
Or is that blank dialogue meant for me to...
Can I prove with evidence?
The janitor did it.
Okay.
That does not make sense.
I think you also have the ability to cross-examine.
Yeah, I've been trying that. That's me trying to select an item.
With an evidence.
In the time that this game was set, that was actually correct grammar.
Who's saying the janitor did it?
The detective. The autopsy says stairs 12 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Autopsy report, yeah.
I'm at a loss here. There's really no obvious... So we've got an autopsy report, my court badge, and a cup. But I don't know, there's no context for the cup.
So when you're cross-examining, you can show evidence or you can press. You press by using Q. And did you try the court building? Like the leftmost item is one that I don't think you've actually tried.
Yeah, but it matters which dialogue I'm on, right?
I don't know. This is new dialogue.
Yeah.
So they would not be on camera.
That is
right.
right.
There we go.
Load.
Breaking through this wall.
And now for the stunning climax of Ace Attorney.
So, I see he has this written as Phoenix Wright, Write.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
as opposed to the opposite of Phoenix Reed?
Oh.
Okay. Not what I was going for, but all right.
All right.
Disc 3.
That person is in this room.
It's the judge. What?
Yes, it's the
Prosecution.
What?
The shards of glass show it's you. Check the prints. It was your coffee mug.
No.
10:30 p.m. Dunk dunk. Thank you. How'd you figure it so fast? I've blackmail on the judge. I always win.
Wow. I like that face.
Will someone defeat the evil Bell? Find out in Super Ace Attorney. Oh shit.
Oh my god, there's a sequel.
Can I press for evidence?
I think this is the only time that an OctoJam game has ended with a teaser for next year's game, presumably. I'm going to hold him to that.
Oh geez, can we add some like more special instructions to make font drawing, or at least convince him to use Superchip?
If he does this in Superchip, it will make it a lot easier to display this much text.
That's pretty impressive that it is faithful.
Yeah, I mean, for the number of pixels he's got to work with, it is surprisingly legible and understandable. But the space limitations are really, really killer.
Yeah, that was funny. It's every disc lasts about 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, moving on. Our next game is called Ghost Escape. All right, Ghost Escape.
So this is a game by Tom. It has a very compelling backstory, which I encourage anybody to try. It is an elegantly simple game. Like, basically, as soon as you start hitting a button, it will probably sink in how this is supposed to work.
Oh, this is neat.
There's a really good mobile game that is this.
Really?
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
I had never seen anything quite like this before. I just was really surprised. Tom was playing around one afternoon in IRC, and he got this idea and just started running with it. And it's incredibly simple, but kind of compelling. You know, you're just trying to keep the chain going.
Yeah, there's like so this, except in like going vertically, this is like one of those arcade games. You get prizes from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a tower building sort of game where you try to get it within those spaces.
Right, and I think that the way that it's written right now, if you make it all the way to the other edge, it actually like keeps wrapping around.
Oh wow!
And so it immediately becomes extremely hard.
It seems pretty difficult getting to 1 pixel.
It is. So this is the smallest submission that we had. This was only 135 bytes. I think it took him maybe like 2 hours to make this. And I think it's a good illustration of like, if you've got a nice, simple idea that like works for the platform, you can make a pretty decent game out of this. I mean, I actually found this kind of fun.
Trying to figure out the like exact pixel distance you need, or how long it takes to stop when you press the button.
Yeah, you got to do a timing thing. You have to get the rhythm down and try to.
Yeah, for me, when I was playing this, it's just you get into a rhythm and you keep it consistent. But then once you miss, it's difficult to reestablish that rhythm.
So the mobile version of this is really popular, free-to-play game. What they do is they vary the speed of the falling blocks, so you can't really get comfortable.
Yeah, I was recommending making it so that you add a slight random delay to before the block starts falling, which would be very easy to add to this game, and like easier to implement than variable speed, I think. But yeah, if anybody is interested in participating in OctoJam in the future and you want a simple game to use as like a starting point for building something more elaborate, take a look at this game. It's like a page of code. Very easy to understand. I think that's what we got.
Sounds hypnotic. It's like a metronome.
John seems to be having fun.
Yeah.
Got really into the mobile version of this.
I think it really does say something that you still want to play this game, for as simple as it is.
It's
just a good mechanic.
Yeah, it's a good mechanic.
It excites the lizard brain.
It sends your lizard brain into overdrive.
Of course.
Don't invoke that, man. You don't know what you do.
God, that sound of hitting the button.
I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, I was waiting.
John can say when it's enough. I'll tell you when he's had enough
one more.
stacking.
All right.
I'd really like to see like an overblown ad or commercial for this game. Just really hyped up and crazy and like really selling it all you can.
Be the change you wish to see in the world, Everdread. I would love to see you make that ad.
I think it would have to be like the Perfection. You know that commercial for Perfection, the board game where it's like, put the pieces into the slot. Just like that, over the top. It's stupidly unnecessary.
If you do it and it becomes viral, then maybe Tom will put this on Steam.
Can you make an executable version of Octo for that purpose?
I absolutely would do that. If we got that.
I mean,
imagine
Tom has a green light slot that is now being, well, actually it is being used, but we could replace it with something less giga.
Yeah, this wouldn't take up anywhere close to a gigabyte, so I don't think that would be a problem.
I wonder how upset people would be on Steam if they saw this was like a green light gag. Oh, green light this! And it's
IJ, I think you let that joke go above your head just a little bit.
A little bit.
But like, I would love to see a green light version of this, just to see how they would react. It'd be pretty funny.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Damn, okay. Next game is Fuse.
Fuse.
Oh, this is one I did play.
Okay, Fuse. This was a game that I wrote. It's a stock Chip 8 game. Basically, we were just talking in IRC at one point. Somebody was asking about how hard it would be to write a Pipe Dream clone in Octo, and I thought about it for a little while. So John, what you need to do is move the piece so that it lines up with the fuse line, and then you press E and you lay down a piece. So just lay it down, and then it will continue eating along this path. the idea is you want to keep the fuse burning as long as you can. So like you press E and then add another piece and add another piece.
What?
Can't overlay.
You can't lay down a piece overlapping lines that are already on the screen. And
you messed up.
19 points. You're starting to get it though. Yeah, so basically this came out of trying to do something like Pipe Dream, but keep it as simple as is humanly possible. So I got rid of the grid, and this whole game is maybe like 3 times as much code as the default built-in sample program. It's actually pretty similar and shares a little bit of code with that. And it's just like there's a certain fun little elegance to it. I was pretty happy with it. Everdid, you said you played this quite a bit when I got the first prototype of it together, right?
Yeah, I was able to get to 350 points, and it comes down to being pretty lucky with the. There's like a few shapes that are way more conducive to actually trying to get a long path.
You can get kind of screwed over sometimes.
And a big part is knowing that it'll always go to the next available north pixel first, and then east, southwest.
Right. So what it's doing is it basically tests what's in the frame buffer by looking to the north, then to the east, then to the south, then to the west. And the first solid pixel it finds, it will just continue going in that direction. And it can be, when you're really on the spot and trying to do it fast, it can be a little hard to remember that and like predict where it's going to burn to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. That made knowing what how a blob will resolve fairly difficult.
Mm-hmm. Oh no!
That's annoying.
If this had like another color which told you like where it was going, like what its current path is, that would be like what pixels you're going to be hit by it. I guess would be
something that other people were talking about that would be difficult to do on chip 8. But if I was going to write like a fancier version of this for a different platform, would be to make it so that when it meets a blob, multiple paths that it can burn on.
Yeah, I was the person who brought that up. Yeah,
and that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that would work really well.
And then you just have to keep at least one of them still burning.
Yeah,
in some ways that would be a lot easier. Part of like the higher difficulty to this game is that you end up leaving around lines and sort of like leftovers that are junk, and then those get in your way later and inevitably grind towards your doom.
So I don't really know where. Okay. Uh-oh.
Oh no!
Oh, you got it. Oh.
148 points though. That's not bad.
Yeah,
Are you having fun, John?
All right.
I thought it was pretty compelling. I played it for a good while. The having it do multiple pieces, like burning multiple pieces, would I think do a lot for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because having played it a lot, you never really get to a situation where you're realistically linking back up to previously set paths. That's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
Just because of how difficult it is to actually get those things together.
Yeah, I think that the actual set of tiles that you get probably could have done with a little bit more careful thought. I just kind of threw some stuff together. So if somebody's going to iterate on this, definitely spend a little bit more time thinking about how these should line up. But anyway, for those playing along at home, this is stock chip 8. 15 cycles per frame, so a fairly realistic emulation speed. And the game still works if it runs slower. It just gets a little bit easier. And it's 424 bytes in total. So this is a medium small game. It's not the smallest.
I currently don't know where
it will end at the top right.
It becomes a little bit of a puzzle game.
Nope. That is not where it's going to end.
Well, if you had in the top right or the top left, it would have been connecting to it.
I think that's probably enough.
All right. All right. Well, that was Fuse. Move on to our... No, that's not what I want. Our next game is Black Rainbow.
So this is Black Rainbow. This is the other game that I made. So Black Rainbow is a action oriented kind of roguelike. It was intended to be more roguelike with like some light combat and stuff. As it developed, it really became sort of like a trippy, surreal exploration game. But I think it's kind of interesting, and there's a lot of variety to things that you can encounter. The levels are randomized every time, and there's a whole bunch of different types of mobile entities and things that you can encounter. Weird, mysterious objects, some of which have purposes and some don't really.
This looks neat.
Yeah, I was pretty satisfied with, just sort of the experience of exploring it and sort of encountering surprising variations on stuff. This is written to run on a realistic superchip profile, so it uses the chip 8 extensions that were added for the HP48 calculator. It runs at 20 cycles per frame, so a little bit faster than the original chip 8, but not dramatically so. And it's 3,302 bytes, so I had a couple hundred free, but it's using most of the available space. The main loop of this game is very carefully optimized because I have a very small number of instructions to work with per frame. And there's a lot of entity logic to deal with and things like that. So one of the things that I do is every time you load a room, it will rewrite part of the code comprising the main loop to sort of like hardwire in the behaviors for the entities that are on the screen. Entities are everything from like that slider thing that's moving across the screen to some of the weird pulsing objects. There are some entities that pretend that they're these eyes you can pick up, and all kinds of different things like that.
Tell me all of the secrets that I can find.
Yeah, there is a room that has a giant eye in it that sort of tracks you around. Yeah, that's what you're trying to find.
Oh.
So you want to approach that and touch it.
Oh.
Didn't touch it.
Yeah, sorry, I should have pointed that out, I guess.
Guess we'll venture back.
I was distracted talking about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting behaviors in this.
Yeah, and I had to cut a lot of things, not because they wouldn't fit on the platform, but because I sort of ran out of time near the end of the month. I ended up being busy with quite a few other things. But I think next year I want to revisit this and try to build on it. Maybe do a sequel or a similar type game that with some additional mechanics. You got to be really careful with those things. You're going to want to like bait it down to get out of your way, because it only moves when you're aligned with it.
Let's judge the distance on that one.
Yeah, so overall the game isn't very hard, partly because I didn't have as much variety in entity types as I was hoping to have. But you can see that like on some of these screens, you get kind of interesting combinations of, they make different things hard. Oh, there we go. There's the mother load.
Oh.
No.
And I went to sleep.
You got nothing. How do you feel about yourself?
It's the same as I ever feel.
So what do you think?
Yeah, it's cool. That's really impressive for Octo. Every time OctoJam comes around, I always want to make something, and then this is a total tangent, but I always like get. For me, the ideas I always have seem way too much for Octo. They either contain text or something. But a roguelike is always something I wanted to make. So seeing that you totally knocked it out of the park in a relatively short time makes me feel inadequate.
Well, I've wanted to explore this idea a bunch of times, and basically, I made Cave Explorer was a game I made before the OctoJam started. That's sort of an adventure game, and last year's Edie the Alien is sort of a randomly generated adventure game, and this is just sort of I keep trying to do more and more in this space. I really like the idea of packing an interesting world into 3.5 kilobytes. Try to have as much variety as I can possibly have.
Yeah,
and I'm very excited by the fact that so many other people that were participating this year seem to try to aim for that same kind of deal, packing a big experience into a little tiny amount of space.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the mystery. Like they're simple designs, but they're very evocative. The eye concepts and the sort of secret spaces you can kind of go into. I think there's a lot of interesting things that kind of open up when you use that as the interesting geometries and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean that's a lot of what I was thinking about as I was designing it. I originally wanted it to be like, this tight action game, and that stuff wasn't really working too well. But I was creating these kind of interesting spaces, and I decided to just go in that direction with it.
Well, our next game is called Planet of Eights. Planet of the Eights.
Planet of the Eights. This is by Comrade. So coming to you in searing CGA, cyan, and magenta. The idea is that you are the last 32-bit register, and you're trying to escape from a land entirely populated by terrifying 8-bit registers.
What is that game from the last game jam we did that this reminds me of?
The
balloon one? Loony Balloony.
Oh, I can see where you draw that comparison. Because there's a balloon and it involves navigating through the air and not getting knocked out of it.
Yeah, but you can't really jump off the top of the eights.
So is this what's this running at? Is this
So this is running at 200 cycles. This is using a stock chip 8 instruction set. It's going a little bit faster than is realistic for the original hardware. But I tried clocking it down, and it's still pretty much playable. So I guess we'll find out later if it's still playable on the original hardware, or if it has any bugs. Generally speaking, like Octo tries to be as accurate as is reasonable, with a few caveats in terms of instruction set with the Cosmac VIP. There's a lot of little undocumented edge cases that we've been trying to do research in order to understand better. The main advances that happened to Octo over the past year have been based on a bunch of research that Mastigaforan did on the way that the superchip works. She actually got a graphing calculator and did a bunch of experiments, and we've been able to discover some bugs and undocumented features that we haven't been able to find any information about elsewhere on the internet. So Octo is the first emulator to support them. When it comes to running a game that you've developed in Octo on the actual hardware, sometimes there's additional details you have to pay a little bit more attention to. I think that this game will be clean. We'll see. Notably, something that this game does do correctly is it has a restart loop that doesn't build up stack junk. So if anybody is interested in an example of doing this correctly, take a look at the source code of this game. It's pretty readable. And this is a smallish game. It's only 1,141 bytes.
You're turning it up, John.
We'll get to 10.
I think that's probably enough.
I'll get to 10. Hang on. Okay, there we go. That is probably enough. Game over. Our next game would be Hedgehog the Drug Dog.
So this is a game where you're a drug dog and you're trying to identify somebody from this lineup who has drugs based on their smell. So something that took me a little bit, that it was not explicitly explained in the README that I had to take some time to figure out, is see when it says drugs there and it's showing like a whiffle through the air. I believe that is a randomly generated pattern. That is the pattern that is going to be hovering above the person who has the drugs. So you do need to pay attention to that at the beginning. The other thing is that your dog has to be overlapping the person you're trying to bark at when you bark. Otherwise, you'll just lose. So you need to be on top of them.
Oh, I thought that would be like.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit unintuitive, but you have to have your dog on top of them, not just underneath them. They put their hands up and fuck, wrong guy.
No drugs on this, man.
It's really hard. But once I was able to figure out the way the mechanic was meant to work, it got a little bit easier.
That's an easy pattern.
Yeah, I believe that the patterns are all generated randomly. So this is a stock chip 8 game. It runs at 30 cycles per frame. It would probably still be playable at a slower speed.
No, that's not who I wanted.
Oh, dear. Ted, you guessed right, though?
No.
Sometimes I did wonder if maybe the game just would always make you lose and randomly choose somebody who it was, just to sort of drive home a point about drug
it's third from the left, I think.
Effective.
Third from the left?
Yeah, third from the left. That's on the right. So yeah, I think it's third from the left. Let me see again. Actually, it's.
And also, you lose the game if the dudes touch the bottom of the screen.
Yay!
Oh, shit!
Nice.
Did it!
Nice.
All right. It's kind of too bad there isn't like a payoff for it. I think it's a neat mechanic. It's very challenging. I think that this needed a better README to make it a little bit clearer what you're trying to do.
Why is he named Hedgehog?
I mean,
So I've got a question.
I have a dog named Bear.
So the Cosmic VIP is a calculator, right? It's a graphing calculator, or
no? The HP48 is a graphing calculator.
Okay.
The Cosmic VIP is like a box that sits on a desk and plugs into a TV.
All right, never mind then.
Okay.
I was going to ask something relating to the TI calculators. Those just use BASIC, right?
Definitely imagine this game being implemented in BASIC, running on a TI calculator for sure.
All right. That was Hedgehog the Drug Dog. Next game is called Shoe Third.
I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this, and I'm not sure the creator of the game knows either.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a game by Beholder. This runs on totally stock, chip 8, cycle count, and instruction set. And I know for a fact it'll work perfectly on a Cosmac VIP because the designer of this game actually managed to get a hold of a real Cosmac VIP and develop on it. So kudos to you. And the description of the controls and everything when you read it in the README initially is a little bit scary, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you start playing it. It's basically like mini golf. It'll just keep bouncing, which is exactly like mini golf. I think we'll all agree. And you're just trying to get it to bounce into the target. You lose points every time it bounces. You get bonus points if it goes through the plus, and you get points when you successfully hit the target. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think this is really cool.
It's neat.
Reminds me a little bit of Desert Golf, if you're familiar.
Yeah, I could see that.
Would it always inevitably hit the target, or can it ever get stuck and like bounce
It is
forever?
possible to get it stuck in endless loops. There's actually a key for
Okay.
like breaking it out if you get into that, which is a nice, attention to detail feature.
Hmm.
Do.
I think you might have fucked it up, John.
Just like real mini golf.
I think I just did the exact same thing again.
Oh, how do you get that? How do you do the faster horizontal movement?
I think that's just a
you can control the angle, starting
Okay.
position, and I think speed. I might be wrong. Definitely angle and starting position.
no.
Oh,
It'll get there eventually.
I don't think there's any. I don't think that's necessarily true.
yeah. I thought it was. It's a well-designed puzzle game with a nice progression in difficulty. Yeah, I think it's really, really solid and polished all around. Obviously it has to work at this very slow frame rate, so it has simple graphics, but they read well. You can tell what's going on.
Not ideal of an angle.
This is a game that I actually spent, a good 15 or 20 minutes playing. It can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, but just put on some nice music, kick
So
back.
this runs well at that frame rate just because they're only updating 1 pixel every frame, right?
Right, that's a good design choice. You may remember from the first year, Turnover 77 was another game that was sort of like that. It had an elaborate playfield that was all static, and all of the action was based around one little sprite moving. Ideas like that work very well.
Oh, kind of got stuck on
Why
the loop.
did that happen?
I think it's because it collides with the edges of the plus thing in sort of a weird way. I think it would definitely be interesting if this author were to compare notes with Mastigaforan, who was the implementer, the Peggle clone last year, just to see how their approaches to collision handling vary. See, now you're a pro, John. You've gone through the gauntlet, trained up.
Sure, let's say that.
I think it would be extremely fun to watch two people like side by side playing this and trying to see who can like get through it the fastest.
There's some weird collision stuff going on.
Yeah, it looks like it skipped over that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's going fast enough that it can like just barely phase through a wall. Collision is surprisingly complex to do right. Even in modern sophisticated game engines, there's just like weird little subtle interactions of things.
No, collision is the most satanic thing in a modern game engines. I can testify.
When I'm teaching kids about games programming, they always want to start by making Pong. And it's surprising how complicated it can be to implement that correctly. You just keep finding subtler and subtler little bugs.
Yeah, that's whenever someone asks me like, "Oh, I want to make a game, where do I start?" I say, "Grab Unity, make Pong." You'd be really surprised. And they always respond with like, "Oh no, I want to do something bigger. I could do something big." Like, no, go make Pong.
Pong is a good microcosm of all of these basic problems in gameplay. Getting the controls to feel right, getting the collisions to be perfect, realizing that getting collisions in physics to to feel right is very different from doing them like mechanically correctly according to your physics class. And that there's all kinds of weird things that happen once you start approximating stuff on a computer.
Here it goes. Whee.
Let's do a little golfer clap.
That does not come up. Never mind.
That's the idea.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good demo.
How many levels are there?
I don't remember. Let's see.
We're cooking. Oh, it's randomized.
There are 36 levels. What happens is like the difficulty ramps up as it generates the levels. It increases the number of obstacles. 36.
Okay. Well, this is a really cool game.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well executed.
That's awesome. All right, our next game is called Skyward.
Okay, this Skyward is a game with some serious pedigree behind it. It is a collaboration between Tan, who made a really fantastic abstract strategy board game last year, and on the first year of the OctoJam, he made Super Square. And he's teamed up this year with Jackie Kircher, who's also been participating in OctoJam since its beginning. On the first year, she wrote the crowd favorite Glitch Ghost, and on the second year, she wrote Octavore, which is an interesting sort of combination of Snake and a puzzle game. So Skyward is a very elaborate. It's absolutely gorgeous exochip-based platformer game. So you can move around. There's enemies. The levels are made from pieces that are stitched together randomly. So the actual scenarios are slightly different every time you play. But there is a progression through the whole thing, and it's possible to get to an ending. The idea is you start underground, and then it's like underwater, and then there's sky. Additionally, something that sort of starts to come into play when you get to the underwater part of the game is that you have spears you can throw that sort of like stick into walls and give you a place to jump to and stand, and they can also be used for defeating enemies. Another thing that may not immediately be obvious is when you jump, when you're at the apex of the jump, you can double jump and get just like a little bit more height. Try it.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Boop.
And so there are little sound effects when you jump and move and use the spears. It's really, really polished. And as I was saying, the pixel art for it, I just think it's gorgeous. It looks
this feels like the most or at least the tightest platformer that we've seen on Octo so far.
There haven't been a lot of attempts, but this is really rock solid.
I really like the randomization. It's very nice, and it's pretty dramatic. These beginning areas are definitely very variant.
There's a lot of scenery to see. You definitely have a different experience and different playthroughs. So this is running an exochip. That's the Octo-specific extensions to Superchip. It gives you color, as you can see. This whole game uses 3 colors. Exochip gives you basically a pair of planes that are each 1 bit that are overlaid. So you've got the background color, the color of the first plane, the color of the second plane, and then a color when they overlap. And in this game, the way that they achieve good performance and manage to have like that, the enemy sprites that are moving over the top of everything, is they actually have it set up so that the overlapped color is the same as the red plane. So it makes it very easy to distinguish between collisions that the player makes with the background and collisions that the player makes with anything red. So they're able to use Chip 8's pixel perfect collision, but also still disambiguate between these two different types of obstacles, which is nice. It's a neat little trick. You just walked into lava, John. After all that work.
Please don't walk in the lava.
This game is pretty big. It's 55K. So EXO gives you the ability to use up to 64 kilobytes for data. You're still restricted to the first 3.5 kilobytes for code for reasons that sort of become obvious when you look at the way that Chip 8 instructions are encoded. Basically, a lot of instructions like the jump and subroutine call instruction can only have room in them to specify a 12-bit address. And since the low 512 bytes of Chip 8 were reserved for the interpreter when this is running on the VIP, it means that you can only do general purpose branching and subroutine calls into low memory. But you can still address a higher space via the index register. Basically what that means is that the extended memory is suitable for data, and if you're really, really clever, you can sort of bank stuff out into usable code space. Mostly the expansion was there so that people would be able to have room to do more interesting. See, here you go. This is if you notice, there are some subtle cues in the background that are reminding you to use the spears and double jumps. I thought that was a very nice touch.
So can you always use the spears?
Yeah, you can always use the spears. It's just
never use the spears.
Well, you don't really need them for that first level, but here you start to actually really need them. A lot of the platforming gets much tighter. You have an unlimited supply of spears, but you can only have 3 of them like displayed on the screen at once. So if you use another spear, then it'll take away one of your previously existing ones.
It's really nice that it has a checkpointing.
Yeah.
I like the way it loads. When you die, it still pans up.
Mm-hmm. And so this is also taking advantage of the scroll instructions that you get in Super Chip and Exo Chip. It's just, honestly, it's a really well-made game. I think just about anybody who enjoys platformers could have a fun time with this. I think it's one of those games that successfully manages to transcend being a Chip 8 game into just being a good game that's fun. When I found out that Jackie and Tan were teaming up to make this game, I was really excited to see what they were able to come up with, and they have totally lived up to my expectations.
Yeah, this is super impressive. It's rare to see something so aesthetically pleasing to it. It has a really nice pixel style, and it feels like it's kind of maximizing what you can even display within Octo. It's really doing its all.
I know that Tan released a bunch of sort of in-progress tech demos and stuff, and it was really fun to see this evolve from like the environments looking sort of like just weird blobs into having really nice pixel art, fleshing them out. I think that the source code for this is on GitHub, and so you could actually track back through the history of the way that it was developed if you want to learn more about that. Or alternatively, You could also check out one or both of their Twitter accounts. They have some animated GIFs and things. Yeah, I mean, just the variety. You've got all these different kinds of enemies and stuff to encounter. And it's mechanically, I know that it's implemented to take advantage of color as a way to simplify handling a collision, but also really works aesthetically. It makes the enemies pop. It makes it really clear. This is bad stuff. Don't touch that. This is fine. It does a really good job of just making all of the limitations into assets. Oh. You've lost your safe haven, John. This is really tense. Oh man, what's going to happen? That enemy right now really reminds me of the game Starguard. It looks a lot like the player in that. Oh, man.
This game's really good.
Do you think you're going to be able to make it through the whole thing, John?
How long is it?
I mean, I think you're more than halfway at this point. It's a little hard to tell because it randomly shuffles its content.
Oh,
Fuck.
I think I'm gonna call it there.
All right. I really encourage anybody who's watching this video to go try this game. It is really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Our next game is called Mastermind.
So this is Mastermind by Bilbo Pop. It explains itself quite well on the introductory screens that we have here. This game was actually finished shortly after last year's OctoJam. The creator just sort of barely missed the deadline, and so he ended up just slotting it in this year so that people can get to see it.
Already I'm kind of dreading this.
John is a little bit tired to solve a puzzle game like this. Suffice to say, it is Mastermind, like the classic version of the game. It is,
I've never played Mastermind, by the way.
So the idea is that you're arranging sets of symbols, and then you make a guess as to, like, is this the pattern? And then it will tell you with its response how many symbols.
What?
Each one has to be different.
Yeah, everyone has to be different. It'll tell you which of these symbols are the right symbol but in the wrong place, and how many are the right symbol in the right place. And you're trying to, like, narrow in on the correct.
So what was right there? None?
I think so, yeah. Oh yeah. So it's those symbols. Unfortunately, it was showing a key earlier, and I think that you sort of skipped past it. But the symbols that it has above each row are telling you how many were correct. So this is written to run on Classic Chip 8 within Classic Chip 8 instruction set. It runs at 20 cycles per frame, but it would be perfectly playable at a slower speed because it's a turn-based puzzle game. It's pretty good sized. It's 2,853 bytes long. One thing about its implementation that's kind of interesting is that it actually encodes all of the text strings in the game in just ASCII, and it uses an off-the-shelf bitmap font. So that's actually kind of an interesting decision because ASCII is not particularly convenient on chip 8 since you have to do all the font drawing entirely from scratch. The advantage to using ASCII, of course, is that it makes it easy to prepare the strings to include in your program. So it's interesting. It's a design trade-off. It can be fun to sort of compare and contrast the way that this game handles its text rendering to say open up Ace Attorney at Law that we played earlier, and they use entirely different approaches. I don't think that John has the patience to actually play Mastermind, but I think at this point we've gotten a pretty good idea of how this game works.
So what are these? What's the symbology thing? So so it's 2 pixels next to each other, and there's a single pixel. What does that denote?
I think that what it means is, if I understand correctly, it's that the top one, it is right now, it is a box that is all white with no pixels darkened in it, which means that no pieces are in the right place. And then underneath, it is all empty, and there's 2 or 1 pixels. And those are saying how many you have the right symbol.
Okay.
So like on the first 4 rows there, you have 2 of the correct symbols, and none of them are in the right place. And
so
then
the
in
H
the
was
subsequent row, that you had 1 of the symbols correct, and none of them in the right place.
So you need an H in there. Oh wait, no, you need a solid. A solid block is the one you changed, and it went down to 1. So solid has to be in one of those slots. It isn't bottom.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
it's these 2 that are correct, just not in the right place. Right?
I think the solid is the one that you changed from 2 to 1. So the solid is
so it's the
yeah. So the solid could be anywhere except the bottom, but there's definitely a solid in the right answer. The constraint in this version of the game that you have to use unique symbols for every row is, I'm not sure if that's part of the original game or not. In a lot of variations on Mastermind, that isn't required. And it can make it a little bit easier to narrow down your initial guesses. There you go. You get the Red Bull is still a little bit coursing through your veins, allowing you to function for the stream.
Yeah, we're at the tail end of that.
Grab the bull by its tail. Okay, so that time you had 3 of the right symbols, but
Definitely
still
the
none of them in the
sideways
right
H.
place.
Or the upside down H. The upside down T, it's not that either. Not that. So these are correct. We need to find the one symbol that...
I think you probably want to swap those 2 around then, so that you're at least trying them in a place that you haven't tried them before. I think that this game really deserves some credit for the effort that it goes into to try to explain the rules and how to play within itself, because that's very difficult to do at this resolution. And it can still be a little bit confusing because it's an abstract puzzle game, but a lot of effort was put into that, and I think it deserves some recognition.
So I don't think I know... let's try this.
Oh, so you've got 1 piece in the right place and 1 correct symbol.
So the only one that was right was the square. The square is in the right place. The solid square is. Everything else is wrong and shouldn't even be there. You should feel bad.
Why did the amount of correct symbols change?
I think that if you have 1 in the right place, then like that counts instead of the.
Yeah, but then we're down another one. I didn't change anything.
You have you don't have the H that you did, the sideways H.
I didn't change anything. Oh, it's sideways H. Okay.
I think that you have like 1 more guess, or maybe no more guesses.
I better have unlimited guesses, or this game's over.
No, you when the screen is full, you're done. You lose.
Round face, or
And so
possibly
it's showing you that the correct solution was upside down T, block, sideways H, and overlapping squares. So you got 3 of the pieces right, but only one of them in the right spot. Guess that this mind is going to need a little bit more mastery.
That was Mastermind.
That was more of an apprentice mind, if I had to say.
Our next game is Monty Hall.
So
what game is this?
This is Monty Hall by Blinky. This isn't really a game. It's just a simulation of something called the Monty Hall problem, which is like a classic puzzle in mathematics. The idea is that you're given 3 doors that have either a ghost or a money behind them. I think that's how the original problem was stipulated. I could be slightly off. And the idea is that you pick a door, and then you're offered the choice to switch doors. And so you can keep your door or you can switch. And you might think that it doesn't matter whether you switch doors or not, but it actually does.
Of course. 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2?
So basically, it's illustrating a counterintuitive result in probability. And I would encourage people who are interested in this to just read up on the Monty Hall problem. It's extremely fun at parties if you are going to parties with total nerds. And this is just a simulation that lets you really, really, really quickly run through doing this so that you can see for yourself how the probabilities work out. I think it's a cute little program. And this is authentic chip 8 limitations, 7 cycles, 468 bytes.
Yeah, it's neat.
Too many ghosts.
One little implementation detail that's a little bit fun is you need to generate a random number between 1 and 3, right? So on chip 8, when you generate random numbers, you specify a mask that is bitwise ANDed against a random byte. So this makes it very easy to do things like generate powers of 2 or multiples of powers of 2. But generating something in a range of odd numbers is actually kind of difficult. And so what I would encourage people to do is think for a moment about how you would solve this problem, and then take a look at the source code of this game. It's very, very simple.
All right. Our next game is Jube 8.
Okay, so this is Jube 8. My understanding is that it's sort of a clone of a Beatmania style thing called Jubeat. And so it's a little bit like Dance Dance Revolution, if you've ever played that, where there's a song and you want to play a pattern on the keypad as the song goes along and sort of match the beats. It uses all 16 chip 8 keys. And this is an exo chip game, as you can probably tell from the fact that there's more than 2 colors. So this uses exo chip audio, which is 4 kilohertz, 1-bit audio. It's very crunchy and very difficult to make it sound like anything. But this game succeeds, at least somewhat.
Oh, man. That is vile.
It takes a little getting used to. I think when we were looking at the initial testing versions of this, I was referring to it as Cochlear Implant Hero.
Hang on.
You're doing pretty well at matching the beats, I think, John.
This reminds me.
There are some like high difficulty songs that were prepared for this game that are just impossible. I don't think it's even possible to, like, they require like 6 or 8 key rollover, that most keyboards can't. It's just ridiculous. So
5 combos.
You can get combos and stuff.
This is really hard on a modern keyboard.
It is, and I think that mainly the part of the problem that makes this super hard. Yeah. Oh man, that makes this super hard.
No, this works. This is a viable strategy.
No, I don't think it allows you to get combos if you do that.
No, it did.
You
I
do
was
hit
mashing it and getting combos.
Oh, see. Perfect
That's
rate.
a lot of miss.
112 misses. So basically, since it doesn't really give you the opportunity to like see beats as they're coming up, you kind of have to just memorize the song. But other than that, it is playable, and so I think this is a neat experiment. What are your feelings about it?
Can I continue playing the game, or is this just where it ends?
I think you might need to restart. You could so in the OctoJam page, there are a bunch of other songs available.
God, it just sounds.
It's beautiful music.
It's considering what they have to work with. It's doing a very nice job. Like it is not friggin' easy to take to transcode down, MP3 or something into a waveform that can be played back at this sampling rate, and
That's not humanly possible.
Yeah, I told you, man.
They're having a giggle.
So part of it is, I think, like the way that you're supposed to play it is with both hands on the left side of the keyboard. This is not possible with one hand at all. And even then, if you have like a crappy keyboard or a laptop keyboard, I don't think that it will be capable of detecting enough keys at the same time to do some of these songs. But that's kind of part of the fun. I think this is a very ambitious title because we haven't seen any other submissions really try to take advantage of the fact that you've got 16 keys to work with. So that's cool, and it's trying to do audio stuff that's very challenging, and I think it does a reasonably good job with that.
It would have been nice to see a little bit more, pretty much using the squares as like giving you
hints that are for stuff.
Yeah, that's coming up. So like you could have this. You start as a dot, like a pixel in the center, and that kind of gets bigger, and then once it gets to the full size of the square, then you have to press.
Yeah,
so each thing
like
could have been
that
timing.
would probably make it a lot more fair. Because in this, it really does feel like you have to play the game a couple of times and totally biff it until you start to remember what the pattern's going to be. Maybe that was a design decision intentionally.
It's F.
Okay, so John is expressing how he feels about this game.
F.
I think we could probably move on.
F for fun.
All right, our next game is called Sensation. The Sensation.
Sensation. This is a game that was made by Master Gaforan, who is our resident Superchip expert. It runs on stock Superchip specs. John, the way that the controls for this work is it's 1 through 3 and 1 through A in like an 8-directional keypad thing. And when there's dialogue in between the action sequences, you press W to go through them. So this is based on the movie Equilibrium, which I have not seen, but I understand it involves doing martial arts with guns, and so that is the principle of this game. It's really cool. It has like these interstitial dialogue things that explain in small words and very few sentences the story. You feel feelings. You must take action. You save a dog. The cops want the dog. Kill them. So you press all the directions around you and you just murder the people in those directions. and piles of dead bodies just stack up around you. It's not particularly hard, but it is very fun.
The animations are pretty great.
Yeah, it's fun. So it's running on totally stock everything for the super chip. It'll work perfectly fine on a real HP48. And this is the game that sort of scrapes closest against the boundaries of reasonable storage. This is 3,575 bytes, which leaves 9 bytes free. And I should point out that on the real Superchip interpreter, there's a bug, which means that if you have a program that takes all of the bytes that are possible, it will just crash. So actually, there are 8 usable bytes free. There was just like an off by 1 error in the bounds checking logic. They know you feel. Kill them all. This part's fun. There's just like a stream of enemies, and you just have to kill them. Up, down, up, down, down.
Oh no.
I think that in a lot of these in some of these sequences, if you do really badly, you can lose. But in a lot of the sequences, I don't think you can lose. It's just kind of a like semi-interactive movie is the way that I would probably describe it.
I knew I should have put my audio track on a different multi-track recording, because all people are gonna hear is when they hear this.
Oh shit, Katana Man! Too bad you have guns.
Katana Man.
So I thought that the writing, like as simple and constrained as it is very entertaining. And yeah, you have a crazy action sequence, I guess, against your father, I guess. And that's the way it ends. It just stops. You've experienced the sensation, John.
Who needs movies?
I mean, Hollywood really could have cut their budget a lot smaller and still done what was necessary to tell the story. Clearly, it can be distilled into 3.5 kilobytes.
So, I dig the comments at the top.
Mm-hmm. It's summarizing the story for you in case you needed to be caught up. Masty is really, really good at commenting your code, so I highly recommend taking a stroll through this source file.
Octocrawl.
So this is a game by Takwezo. This game is a monster. As you can see, it is very nice looking. It is an extremely authentic looking roguelike. It's got this amazing tile set. You've got your rat enemies, your bat enemies, pretty much everything that you would hope for in this type of an experience. And it has big procedurally generated levels. So the thing about this game is this is OctoJam because it's got extra colors, and this is running beyond even the level that ordinarily the Octo emulator lets you crank it to. This is actually running at 20,000 cycles per frame. So basically like 3 or 4 orders of magnitude faster than the original Chip 8 platform. It is also using every single byte that you are allowed to use in OctoJam, as well as it has orbed some of its data buffers onto the low 512 bytes of memory. That is normally where the font is stored. So this is using all of the RAM plus additional RAM. Some of that is actually just padding. If you look into the way that it's implemented, it is helpful to have certain buffers aligned at certain addresses because of the way that things work. But basically, this uses in some sense all of the memory that is available on the platform. And a lot of the time and compute capacity of this is going into doing level generation and handling the data structures necessary and addressing all of the levels that can be in this, because they're all persistent. This uses a 64-bit linear feedback shift register pseudo random number generator. So it has a lot more entropy than the built-in random number generator that's provided as part of Octo, and also it can be sort of consistently seeded, which is probably useful in testing this. But that also does take up a significant amount of time. So one of the things that Takwezo built in the process of making this game was he actually added a few features to Octo, including a profiler. You can try it yourself. If you hit P while you're running any Octo game, it'll just bring up the profiler and give you an idea of the functions that have been executing the most and what percentage of runtime they account for. And you can see a lot of details and things if you want. Basically, in this game, when I was poking around with it, it spends a substantial amount of its time either in the pseudo random number generator or in the code that's responsible for indexing into a given tile in a given map in a given location. So I would be very interested to know whether the PRNG was chosen and implemented just because it would, like, it seems like a nice idea, or if it turned out to actually be strictly necessary to get good level layouts of this. I don't know if you would get okay results with the built-in random number generator or not.
Oh, stairs. Okay, stairs.
Yeah, you can go up and down stairs.
I was getting confused with what button that was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess you're done. You're done.
I guess I went down the wrong stairs.
So it's a very authentic roguelike type experience.
Yeah, I like the mapping system.
It's got a little mini map as you explore around. That's a nice touch. I think I only spent a little bit of time looking through the code to try to think about ways that it might have been sped up a little bit. I think so. The strategy that I used with Black Rainbow is every time you enter a room, I copy all of the room data into a temporary buffer so that I don't have multiple layers of indirection to go through to address it, and I have access to the whole tile map for that room in one page of memory. In Chip 8, a 256 byte chunk of memory you typically think of as a page, and it's very convenient to index into that because a single 8-bit register can give you an offset into it. That probably wouldn't be sufficient for the size of the map levels that we have here. But I think that the idea of doing a copy into a temporary with fewer layers of indirection might have sped up the addressing that's going on here a little bit. And, because that seems to be the hottest part of the game code as it exists right now. It'd be really hard to say without experimenting, though. So what do you guys think?
It's really simple, but impressive for what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's breaking all the rules, though. It's kind of hard to be impressed by something that breaks the emulator so hard that it needs to hack it into run like 10 times faster.
I think it could be made more efficient. I think that at the same time, it looks really great.
It's just it's an accomplishment. Then you compare it against Tan and Jackie's game, being within the rules.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're also very different genres.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of surprising because this thing is a turn-based game that needs all of this speed and compute capacity, but Tan and Jackie's game is an action game that gets by with a lot less. typically you think of turn-based games as being kind of lighter weight because they don't have to like you can play this at a lower emulation rate and it's just a little bit laggier and choppier.
Is that just it? You get to a certain floor and it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to spend forever loading the next floor.
I mean, it just takes a while to build each level.
Is it full of sand or blood?
Blood. I'm gonna go ahead and say blood. I'm just projecting what I want it to be.
Sense.
So,
man, those load times.
You want to call it?
I think that you've probably gotten a sense of what the game is like.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think the graphics and the minimap sort of stuff. That I wonder.
It's so Toquezo is just saying in chat that the reason that they're using a PRNG is because they need to be able to reconstruct a level when you enter a level based on a particular seed. So like when you go from map to map, it's regenerating it based on the seed, which also explains why it needs to
getting stuck in a loop here.
And this is a known bug that it gets stuck loading like this.
Well, okay, that was Octocrawl. Really, really impressive, cool stuff. Boop. Oh wait, our next game is Kesha is Bird. So
is this our final game?
Kesha was Bird.
Kesha was Bird 2, or Kesha was Bird.
Bird, yes.
Bam. So is it Kesha was Bird or Kesha was Bird 2? What is your accepted?
I think either of those are equally reasonable. It's a very surreal game, so I think it would be suitable to say that it is neither and both of those things simultaneously.
And this is our last game of the showcase.
Mm-hmm.
Press 1 to start.
So this is made by Woozle. The prequel to this game was...
Oh no.
Oh dear. So this game has a fully original soundtrack, which is pretty cool. The prequel to this game was featured in the Little Awful Jam last year. And it's an exochip game. It uses all but 24 of the bytes that are available to exochip.
What was the original joke behind the name Kesha was Bird?
I'm not sure that I really understand anything about this game.
What was the theme of the Awful Jams he was?
It was chill, and it was a pretty chill game.
Yeah, it was about staying in your apartment. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crunchy.
Yeah. So the audio in this game is pretty interesting because apparently, like it was generated offline as like chip tunes, and then the author actually implemented a lossy audio compression codec. So it's 72 kilobytes of sampled audio, crunched down into 24 kilobytes, and then decompressed at runtime.
The vault is warm and cozy. The recent
Fish
apocalypse. Oh, this font.
Dimly at the back of the professor's mind.
Stay in the warm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this glorious audio. It's good. It's good.
It's a little bit difficult to talk over, but I actually thought it did a pretty good job of setting a mood for this game.
Actually, hang on. Here's what I'll do for you. How's that? Is that better? Wait. Does that lower my voice for you?
Yeah, it lowered your voice as well.
Fuck it. Okay. We're gonna begin inventing. Whoa.
You invented a time machine.
The professor
And
lays
what's
in
cool
bed.
about it is, from an audio perspective, is it's got like this background music that just kind of rolls, and then when things happen, it will cut to specific sound effects and stuff. So it is actually reacting to what's going on.
Sleepless, fixated on his new invention. Get out of bed. The vault is warm and cozy. Blah, blah, blah. Work on the time machine.
Frustratingly, only a few pieces are needed. So you need to wander around and find the other pieces. I have played all the way through this, but it's not too hard to figure out what to do.
Rummage.
Hell yeah.
This is like an Everdread life simulator right here.
Oh no, an anti-looting brew.
Oi, mush! Are you grieving me? Read the sign or I'll shank off your thieving mitts.
Dropped it. Can I have it back?
You can have his tongues if you want. You just picked up tongues.
Oh, that audio. It is just going to town.
Look into the broken compartment.
I'm sitting here like staring at this text, trying to decipher it. The professor was confused. The F-ray isotope emitted a green glow, which is physically impossible because green isn't in the black body's specter. Pick up isotope with tongs. It reminds me of a toddler falling down on a Casio. This music. And breaking the Casio, that's why it's making the noise.
Wow. I think it's interesting, like the approach that they took with the way that the font works. Like, it's sort of doing like a subpixel kerning thing. I actually think it makes it easier to read than if it was just black on white.
Yeah, I'd agree with
It's
that.
like a drop shadow almost.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to that like Kesha's Bird had a really, really bold palette, whereas this game is just grayscale.
It's freaking out.
I am digging this though. Like I'm ragging on the music because it is assaulting my brain, but
Also remember that John has like at least a little bit of a headache and is sick right now.
it's not an excuse. But I appreciate you coming to my defense. Let's take a walk around the crater.
Ninja's remains covered by disintegrating black robes.
Reflect on a ninja's death. That's a good band name. That's a good college band name.
Reflect on Ninja's death?
Yeah.
I think that would be more of a song title than a band.
Well, does it pass like the concert test? I'm going to go see Reflect on Ninja's death tonight. That passes. That's awesome.
This is, if you recall, this is something that happened like midway through the first game.
Ask me anything about Kesha's Bird.
What was Kesha's Bird?
I don't remember.
What was the password that we got stuck on?
I don't remember.
I remember.
8888?
No,
Yeah.
that was not a puzzle.
Did we get something?
Yeah. I think you have the things that you need. You need to work on your time machine.
I love how the music is like causing Skype to throttle you guys back. So IJ, you're just like slowly fading away every time you try and talk. Let's flip it.
Flip
Oh,
that
man,
switch.
you got the isotope. You got the fish head. Oh shit. Kesh's fish head. Uh-oh. On to chapter 2.
Man, imagine if Phoenix Wright was ExoChip and had all this text in one disc.
I think that if System Logoff decides to break down and do an ExoChip game, it will be like all of the heavens have opened and every possibility lays before him.
And you know, a lot of people like working within restrictions.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point.
Surprisingly, the projector worked. Dawning the Big Screen is an educational film about intercepting calls, greeting lovers, and precisely killing people with katanas. Okay.
Those are all things that you observe ninjas doing in this game.
We did not grab the katana yet.
Deactivated ninjas.
Oh, no, not deactivated.
You want to take the G-door. Oh, look at that. It is a woman with a dog's head.
The professor entered building, hearing raised voices and thudding.
It's brothel.
It's brothel.
Ask her for her name.
Anelia.
Girl giggled. The conversation flagged, and the professor became suspicious.
Go outside.
The game is forcing you down a dark path.
Oh yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah, what do you think?
That dog head's kind of weird.
Whoa.
What have you done?
I just didn't like the dog head, man.
Glitch. Pausing simulation. And this is where the game becomes, like, way trippier than it was.
Chip 9 mainframe. It's you from the future, IJ. You made the Chip 9. You went too far.
I did.
God, Chip 9 would be a great name for that Game Boy-esque emulator thing.
Oh, God.
I'm offering you a deal. You play my game and we will figure out what to do next. In fact, you don't have a choice. Close browser window if you don't agree. Ha ha ha. Oh, the audio is still playing. I can't fake it. Okay.
If you squint just a little bit, that's Octo.
If I squint. You're White Knight. You see a black tower in the distance. What would you do? Nothing.
Wrong answer. You got to rush towards the tower.
Oh yeah, I didn't actually notice it started me all the way back at the beginning.
No more nasty reboots. It's dark. What would you do if it was dark? Ever dread?
I'd probably cast an illumination spell because I'm a magician.
Mm. What does 2 + 2 equal? What number would you call?
Fish?
And what would you say to a fish? It becomes sort of like a Final Fantasy final boss.
Final decision.
What do you guys think?
Yeah. I don't actually know if this has multiple endings. I know what I did originally.
What did you do?
I decided to reset the emulator.
Did that same thing happen?
Yeah,
Oh, because I did not pick that.
and then it rolls credits.
I hit keep playing, and then
I thought, like the original Kesha was Bird, the thing about this game is I forget that I'm playing an OctoJam, and I'm just interested in what happens. So
He
I
gets a
think
lot of
that
content,
sense-
a lot of
that sense is
concepts.
totally successful.
Thanks for all the fish.
Sorry, you're saying.
I was just saying, it gets a lot of concepts, aesthetics, and narrative concepts through with a very limited amount of space and stuff to work with. And I think there's a lot to be said for having like elements be mysterious or strange and surreal. There's something about the very limited, minimalist sort of platform that makes that sort of stuff probably the most conducive to an interesting narrative experience.
Yeah, there was a lot. This was a lot more linear, and I thought a little bit more coherent than the original Kesha was Bird. I think it's
Well-
interesting to sort of compare them to one another.
The original was interesting, but the puzzles, some of the puzzle design was really difficult and kind of hard to parse. Which
Whereas
made
this
it,
was more of like just a narrative experience.
yeah. So this seems way more likely for people to get through it without getting into like a stumbling block.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that's Kesha was Bird, and with that, that's also all of this year's OctoJam games. So I guess what I'd like to say is thank you to everybody who decided to participate. I hope that you had fun making these games and playing other people's games, and maybe you learned a little bit in the experience. So as sort of a follow-up to the video that we just recorded here, my collaborators, Masta Gaforan and Doug Crawford, are both going to be recording videos of the games that are capable of running on the HP48 and the Cosmac VIP on their original respective platforms. Yeah, so stay tuned.
yep.